Hello, my name is Dr. David Edward Poon, founder of the Faces of Advocacy. We are not asking for open borders. We are just asking to be together. Today, we have a very special guest, our first celebrity on the Champion Interviews. This is Alissa White-Gluz. She is the lead singer of Arch Enemy. And most importantly, she is a well-known activist who has been fighting for various different things during her lifetime. She's been willing to come talk to us about activism, moving forward, and how we can best reunite families. So please welcome Alissa. Thank you so much for being here.
Hello, thank you for having me.
So right off the bat, let us know, why is family reunification important to Canadians?
I mean, family reunification is important to anyone. Family is the number one thing I would think that drives a lot of people to keep going. It's how we seek solace, comfort. It's a really important thing just for anyone's mental wellness. And as Canadians, a lot of us have our families on the other side of the border. You know, most of the Canadian population is located very close to the border. So it's not unusual for there to be cross-border families, people to leave Canada for a job or for study in the States and vice versa. And so I think that it's not uncommon for Canadians to have family members or business or school elsewhere other than Canada, which is a beautiful thing, because then we all come back and we bring culture and knowledge, and it's amazing. But for the past 9 months, 8-9 months, it's just been Fortress Canada, and it's been really, really difficult to have any of that happen. So I think it's really important to have an organization dedicated specifically to making that happen.
Fortress Canada. I'm going to start using that in the terminology. That's a good one. And so was there a reason that brought you here? Are you personally affected? How did you find the Faces of Advocacy?
Yeah, so I have been in a relationship with Doyle Wolfgang von Frankenstein, who is best known for his work in the Misfits. So he's been my boyfriend since 2013 or so. I'm not big on anniversary, so I don't even remember, but it was in 2013. That's what
No
we go
gifts on
by.
the anniversary.
Yeah, I don't really care about that. I mean, I'm like not a romantic person, and even I was dying without him. So so I can only imagine what like a normal person would have been going through. But yeah, so I was affected by this, and being a touring musician and the fact that he is also a touring musician, we're accustomed to not seeing each other. We're used to going 3 months, 4 months without seeing one another. And that has just been a normal part of our lives. And it's also been the reason that we never actually like joined together and settled down in Canada or the US, because it was most of our lives were spent, oh, you want to come live in my tour bus, or I'll go live in your tour bus, or we'll both live in Canada for a while, we'll both live in the States for a while. It was just like this really global nomadic way of life that we both had, and it worked out just fine for us until the pandemic hit and all the borders became a lot more important than they used to be. And so I was separated from him in late February when he left Canada, and I actually also left Canada. We both went to New York, which is close to where he's from. He was going to start a tour, and I was actually in a studio in Brooklyn recording some songs. And I still remember it was March 12th. He had already like left to start rehearsals and start his tour. I was in the studio, and then I had some session musicians, and they walked in and I went to shake their hands, and a lot of them were giving me an elbow, and I was like, oh, right, okay. This is like a new thing. I wasn't totally aware of it. I had actually been locked away in a cabin for like 10 days prior to that, because I went on a writing retreat to get away from it all, not knowing that like it all would soon be getting away from me. But yeah, so I was like, that's weird. And then that day it was declared a global pandemic. And the next day I cut off everything I was doing, rented a car, and drove back into Canada, because I was like, they're gonna close the borders. Like, I'm not gonna be able to get home. So I went into Canada in a panic. I got like the last rental car. I had to look all over New York City to find one. Got back into Montreal, and Doyle was on his way to his first show when he got the phone call. He was like about 30 minutes from the venue, and he got the phone call saying the whole thing's off. All 5 weeks of the tour are finished. No shows are happening. And so he had to turn around and basically go home. And so that was the last time I saw him, was before that, until about 3 weeks ago, when finally on October 8th, when that amazing exemption was put into place, I was right there applying minutes within it appearing on the website. And I am one of the very lucky ones who actually did get an exemption. So now we're back together. He's in the other room.
That's just so amazing.
Yeah.
And you found our group just by Googling or from Twitter?
Yeah. So I found it because, I was talking with my friends a lot, and most of them were holed up with their families and with their husbands or with their kids or whatever, their parents. But I was like totally alone the whole time. And I'm okay with that. Like I said, I'm pretty used to that, but I'm also used to living in a tour bus where I share it with like 13 other people. And I'm used to having that closeness and used to having a family around, whether it's my band or Doyle or my like blood family. And it just became this weird situation where like, I still haven't hugged my mom since February. I had to suddenly, like, for the protection of others, keep myself separate. And so I was talking with my friends over FaceTime, and one of them said, you should really look into this love is not tourism thing. And so I did. And I was like, wow, there's a lot of people in this same situation, especially in Canada. And so that's how I found you guys.
We're just so grateful that you're here. Having the high profile people really help increase our visibility. Now, when you talk about the tour buses, that's very important, because even if you were able to live in the US on a tour bus for 6 months, and then your partner could come to live in the Canadian tour bus for 6 months, the government of Canada would not actually recognize that as common law, because there's no address for the tour bus and it has to be 1 year.
Exactly. And before I found you, he was calling the border, I was calling the border. I had written to my MP, I had written to the government, who actually were quite responsive the first time I wrote to them. And I told them, like, look, I can give you evidence. I can give you like insurance papers with both our names on it, mail at my house that has his name, flights from 2013 that were both booked on, like I can give you lots of evidence. You can Google us, like I can give you all this evidence to prove that our relationship is legitimate. We just don't have that common law status because we don't spend, what is it, 2 years in one address?
Yes,
we don't, 1 year, exactly. So we don't do that in one address. We do that in several addresses, or a bus that doesn't have an address.
Yes.
And when I explained that to the border, they were like, wow, that's really something. And they didn't know what to say. They were like, that's a unique situation, and I don't know what to tell you. And basically we called them a lot, and they were like, you know what, just go get married. You fly into the States, get married in the States, and then you can both come back. And I was prepared to do that.
I'm glad you were not pushed to do something that you were not prepared for, and that is what this campaign has been for. But your profile will help snowbirds in the future and many people who are in a similar situation. So it really means a lot that you're here. So if you were able to tell the government of Canada one thing, what could have been done to improve the process, or multiple things, what could you have done better? What would you tell the government of Canada?
I would have said to use technology where it exists. We have the ArriveCan app. We have the ability to, now we have the COVID tracking app. It wouldn't have been that difficult, I don't think, to just implement something in the ArriveCan app where we could input, hey, this is the amount of time I've spent in Canada over the past year, 2 years, 5 years. I'm here a lot. This is a second home to me, even though it's not on paper. And just put that in there so that people could know before they made that flight to Canada, before they took that 13-hour drive to Canada, they would know, am I going to be allowed into the border? I think it would have just been that, use the technology, we know it's there, and also just be clear. If they would have been clear about what we are allowed to do and what we are not allowed to do, it would have been extremely helpful. And even now, I know that there's a lot of issues with how clear the rules are in regards to family reunification, and also just in regards to like the lockdowns. Like,
yes,
it's not very clear what we're allowed to do and what we're not allowed to do. So I think clarity and just accessibility, given that they know we all have smartphones, let's use that. That's what I would have said.
Yes, no, I think that's very important because the technology is there. Utilizing it is important. Now, when it comes to clarity, common law was something that actually caught myself, because my own partner, we have a lot of documentation that we've been together for so long, but she flew into Canada from Europe, was rejected in Toronto, had to fly back. And it's it's really upsetting because there are different definitions at the time that was really difficult. There was the taxing,
Right.
yeah, the CRA, the IRCC.
Exactly. And I have a friend who flew down, got married, and came back, and they've only been together 8 months.
Wow.
And it's not that their relationship is not legitimate, but a relationship that's lasted years or even a decade at this point, I don't see how that is not recognized, especially when we can provide proof. It's just a very kind of weird period of time where personal things like a relationship suddenly became like legal matters. And it was just very strange trying to think like, how can I prove that we're actually together?
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. No, these are the critical things that are just so surprising from this entire process. Now,
Yeah.
you've been an activist for many, many years. And I'm wondering, how would you advise us to best proceed to get the best success when it comes to our own advocacy?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say I've seen how you guys have been very polite and very clear with your how you address the workers and how you're addressing the people responsible for making these exemptions happen. Very, very polite, very to the point, very concise. And I think that is a good way to go, but also making it clear where they're falling short. It's difficult to be on top of an organization that has people, first of all, people who are going through a pandemic alone, separated from their families, expecting something, not getting it. It's difficult to sort of represent a bunch of hurt and angry people in a not hurt and angry way.
Yes.
But I think you're doing a great job of that, because in my experience, although with certain causes that I've done rallies for or speeches for, you want to just scream and you want to yell and you want to get emotional and you want to show how much it's hurt you, how important the cause is, but you almost have to hold those emotions in and make sure that the cause is what's highlighted above and beyond anything else. And so I do think that addressing them in that manner is the best way to go. They could turn around and say, you know what, you're too difficult to deal with, we're shutting down the whole program. They have the power to do that. So I would say that continuing the way that you have been doing it is a really good move. And also just making it very clear on both sides. You're communicating to the people who are depending on Faces of Advocacy for their reunification, and you're also communicating to the people in power. So you're kind of this like watchdog middleman, which is not an easy position to be in, but I think you're doing a great job.
That means a great deal. Thank you. The watchdog middleman for the Fortress of Canada. That'll be our new perspective. Now, the next question is by far the most important. Now, you're an artist. You're a musician. Now, the greatest music, in my opinion, is 1990s boy band music. That is not debatable. Now, if you were to cover one song from the 1990s from a boy band, what would it be?
Well, I would love to debate you on that. But you know what? I have to say, I was, so in the early 90s, okay, in the 90s, I was like between 10 and 20 years old. And so for me, I was like, I don't listen to that. That is not cool. But as I've gotten older, I recognize some really good songwriting in there. I'm not going to lie. There's a lot of Swedish songwriters actually that wrote for those pop artists. So if I had to choose one song, I think it would be Backstreet's Back. Is that what it's called? Yeah. By the Backstreet Boys.
Everybody.
They had like a zombie. Yeah, they were like zombies in the video, I think, and it was like Halloweenish.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It is inarguably the greatest music of all time. But
it's good. It is good.
And so finally, luckily you've been able to be reunited, and I'm so thankful for you fighting for the rest of the campaign as we continue forward. So what message do you have for the people who are feeling forgotten, who are feeling lost, and who are feeling that there's no hope?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm lucky that I actually got my exemption. I was the same as everybody else, waiting like, oh my God, it's 14 days is tomorrow. Am I going to get this? I got mixed messages back. Like I got an email back that said, you didn't give us the information required. And then I was like, but I did, because I applied on the first day and then it changed on the second day. Like I said, it was very confusing. So I completely understand where everybody is and how disheartening it is to have gone 7 or 8 months, then be told it's going to happen, and then it still hasn't happened. I completely understand that. And that's one of the reasons that I'm happy to be here right now, because if I can draw attention to this in any way possible and, you know, make more reunions happen for people, I'm more than happy to do that, because I know how difficult it is, even for me as someone who's used to being separate from my family. So I would say don't give up hope. Also use that technology, use that FaceTime. You know, for the longest time with Doyle, we were watching movies together by, like, I would have a phone on a stand aiming at an iPad playing a movie, and I would be on FaceTime with him while he was watching the movie through the phone and I was watching the movie. Like, that's how we managed to still have some time together. So don't be afraid to do things like that, even though they don't feel the same and they feel kind of crazy. Just make sure you get some time in. It really, really does help. Even a phone call, just something other than texting, just get some actual real person to person connection there as much as you can. And I guess try to just be patient. I know it's difficult. I know it's really, really hard. But we're doing everything we can. And you know what, this is going to probably strengthen a lot of people's relationships, because I will say that, you know, being in a relationship where you are normally separated for 2 months, 5 months, whatever it might be, it does take on like a deeper level of connection where you're like, it's okay, we're gonna get through this just fine, because we're used to it, we know what we're doing. And I wasn't worried even for a second in the 8 months I was separated from Doyle. I wasn't worried. I knew that we're good, but it just got to the point with the winter coming, the days getting shorter, where it was like, it would be really nice to have him here. So I'm super happy for anyone who has had their reunion, and I'm very sorry for anyone who hasn't had it yet. And I have my fingers and eyes crossed for them to have it very, very soon.
That message of making the relationship stronger is something that isn't talked about enough. So I'm really glad you mentioned that. This is Alissa White-Gluz, the lead singer of Arch Enemy and an activist for a very long time, here to give a message of support. Anyone out there right now feeling disenfranchised, feeling forgotten, feeling lost, I ask you to please join the campaign at facesofadvocacy.com. You can find us at Faces of Advocacy on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, and on Facebook. Please remember that we are not asking for open borders. We are just asking to be together. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you for answering my strange questions. And we're out in 3, 2, 1.